Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kire here with another Infinite Magicraid video. And in today's video, we have the patch notes here for February 9th. And let's get into it. We got a couple things that are interesting. We have the Raid Up event going on here. And then we also got buffs to Lucia, which I think are actually really good. And I'll break those down here in a second. So nothing too crazy when it comes to actual in-game changes. Let's talk about that really quick. Feature adjustments. Added allow options by guild officers feature to guild arena during the battle phase, so nothing too crazy there. And then optimize the friend request rules. The friend request requirements for one adventurer are now no longer implemented when the other adventurer passes the friend request sent by the former. So two things that don't really change much at all. And I think the things that do matter are going to be, is this legendary raid up event actually worth pulling for? And how good is Lucia now? So the first question here, I see these characters as solid heroes. All of these are solid, but none of these are massive game changers. And when it comes to raid up events, you don't even know if you're going to get one of these heroes, let alone like the specific one, and you might not get any of these. And I think all of these guys in a vacuum are good heroes. I wouldn't be sad pulling any of these, but I think these are kind of in that A tier. Like if there's 15 to 20 characters in that kind of S tier category, I would say these guys are in the tier below. These guys really go to the moon when you get a lot of exclusives on them, especially Elena here. I would say Elena Gilliman, I've been seeing used a ton, but she pretty much changes quite a bit when you get her exclusive. So those two right there need quite a bit there. Space is a character everyone gets. She's great at E0. Then she gets good again, I would say, at E3. So that's where the really big, impactful exclusive is at E3, because the turn meter increase goes up, which is a massive difference in PvP. So those would be the two things. So I don't think it's worth pulling for space. Luz here, this is a solid AoE damage dealer for Sword Harbor Guards. And then Maeve is a very good single target damage dealer that I've used quite a bit in Guild Boss, and easily one of the best like kind of boss killers / guild boss killer. So I think they're all good there. As for the epics, Biston is fantastic. Lomos is okay as a poisoner. I think he's actually, I want to try him as like a main poisoner. That I have him kind of in a Hizaro or a mid-rolled spot and see how he compares. But I think he could actually be pretty good, but only at exclusive 3, because that's when he detonates poisons. And then Sandora and Longbeard are, well, Longbeard especially is not that great, but Sandora is is super niche. So I would say when it comes to the epics, like the big ones you want to get are Bissidin and Lomos. Okay. And then we have the Valentines sign-in event. Main thing to care about here is going to be a regression potion. And usually these sign-in events, they have something on day 1 and something on day 3. The regression potion is usually on day 2. So we'll have to see what that is. Also, there is an exclusive avatar. I don't know if you guys care about that. And then here's where it gets kind of interesting, is going to be the buffs for Lucia. And this is going to be a lot of reading here, but based on what I've seen and reading this in advance, I think she's significantly better with these changes. But does that mean actually going for her? I think she's at best a second exclusive, probably a third exclusive. And the big issue is going to be needing to get her exclusive 3. That is definitely going to be the big benefit you get, because let's just read that first, because I think this is where we should start. Is exclusive 3, this is a massive investment, 250 of these mythic shards. I would say the main one nowadays is going to be Olacaster, but just E0, so that's 100 there. Then next is going to be getting Ben Austin to exclusive 3. I think those two are pretty much no-brainers. And then going from there, this is going to be arguing the Lucifer or Lucia fight. I would say at this point, it's not even how good is she, but then is the role she's fulfilling that she may or may not be the best in, is it actually worth putting all this investment into? Because she's competing with people like Hizaro and Nid Rolled. And so if you already have those kind of characters, then I would say this is just a complete pass. But if you don't, then I think she can actually be very good. But there is those other better mythics, in my opinion, still that are a bigger priority. So this is something that's going to be way down the line, or if you're spending money, this is going to be something that, after you've covered those other exclusives, this is when you start to focus on her. So here's her exclusive 3. So added, inflicts 1 layer of bleed for 2 turns whenever the last 5 stages of Spirit Blade Outburst. This is her ultimate, land a crit, or there is a 60% chance to inflict 1 layer of bleed for 2 turns if no crits are added. Besides, well, Lucia has Soul Core, and each time Spirit Blade Outburst, that's the name of her ult, lands a crit. Additionally, triggers the effect of 1 layer bleed 1 time after Spirit Blade Outburst is cast. So this is basically like his RO E2 or A2, where he's just nuking the poisons, like proccing the explosion of those of those bleeds immediately. But she does it in an interesting way where she needs to be able to crit. So the ultimate that she has is a 6-stage ultimate. Let's actually go back into the game here, and I can show you her kit here. And here's an example. So normally how these work is once you get them exclusive, because these are usually effects that you need an exclusive for. So an exclusive 1 on his RO additionally triggers the target's bleed 1 time up to 6 layers. And 6 layers is the, overarching normal amount of time that they're going to allow. I've never seen 8 or 4 or whatever. It's always 6. That's where they have these bleed explosion abilities set to. But then if we look at Lucia's ultimate, deals 6 stages of damage. Whereas the exclusive 3 is that if she lands a crit, then she's going to poison explode all the ones that she lands a crit. I think that's really effective, especially when we put the rest of her kit in to this, especially if you have her with Ben Austin, because that's another thing bleeders really benefit from having a Ben Austin. So because to constantly pull her in to make sure that her bleeds are being landed, not splitting the bleeds up with multiple other members, because you usually always have someone that's doing less damage on the bleeds. And she's going to be the one that you're absolutely going to want to have the bleeds on because she has some of the best chance to have the most bleed damage. So you really need to have a Ben Austin with her. But then also you're going to need to care about so many other stats because you need a crit to land that explosion. Whereas when it comes to Hizaro, for example, all I got to do is worry about the effect hit in the mastery, just like normal, and as much attack as possible. And then he's going to trigger 6 bleeds. I never have to worry about it. Whereas with Lucia, I have to not only worry about that, but I have to worry about enough crit rate to then also proc as many bleeds as possible. And so it's like she has another stat here that we have to worry about completely. Whereas in my situation, it's hard enough getting enough effect hit and enough mastery to do a ton of damage plus the attack. Then this effect hit is not even enough. I'm bringing in another character here to drop down effect res 2. I could either bring in Nicholas or I could be bringing in Hoff. I would say this is going to be a really good thing to bring in with a Lucia because she does so much direct damage as well that this is really going to make a difference with the tenacity down and the defense down. So I think this is probably going to be one of her best pairings. But at the same time, that is a lot of stats to have to worry about on a character that other characters can do. And I think for a lot of it, I think she's probably now the best bleeder when it comes to a boss in a setting like this, like Guild Boss. I think she's probably going to do the most damage. It's just going to take a lot of gear to be able to exceed some of these other characters. Like if I had an E3 Hizaro or an E3 Nidrold, I bet I'm probably going to do more damage for a bit until gear gets better or something like that. Or maybe she ends up doing a ton more damage. I'm not sure, but I think she's on par with these characters here. So if you don't have those characters and you already have Ben Austin, then it's worth it. But it's really hard to recommend this because she's... How many mythic shards would it take to really get her? Because it's like I still don't think she's better than Ben Austin. And so that's another 250 there. I don't think she's better than going for Holocaster E0 so you can cheese if you wanted to. Maybe you skip out on the cheese here, but then you have the best nuker here on Lucifer that she's competing with. So I think the big thing is that I would probably take her 2 or 3, only if I didn't have a Hizaro, only if I didn't have a Nidrold. There's a couple other, like maybe if you have, for example, you have Hizonia and you have Melia or something like that, and you're doing really well in Guild Boss anyway, and she's probably not even worth it, in my opinion. But I do want to see the people that have invested in her and just see the disparity, because as a mythic, I feel like she should blow Nidrold and Hizaro out of the water at E3. But if she doesn't do that, then she's definitely not worth getting. But looking at her kit, that's just kind of my opinion here when it comes to the character. But let's go back to the rest of her kit, because what they ended up doing is changing it to where this is her E2 or A2. Instead of dealing 150 to 180 on a single attack, it does 3 stages of 205% attack damage. And then meanwhile, each stage has a 100% chance to land a bleed. And then the more layers of bleed the target has, the more extra damage it can be dealt, up to 205%. 5%. I think that's a great change there. And then here's the next thing that I think is a big change is her passive. Whereas it used to be, she would be basically changing the bleed damage. So right here, 15%, whereas now it goes up to 25%. And I believe that's before books. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's before booking her. So it's going to go up a bit more, maybe 27%, based on how her passive is currently when she's booked. But that's a massive change there. Plus, not only bleed damage, but speed and leech, which is really nice. It's mainly this portion here, the speed and the bleed, because it's she has so many stat requirements that at least she's going to be getting more speed. And then you could pair her with someone that boosts her speed or something like that to make her go more, or at least make Ben Austin go more, so she's in turn going more. But great character now, in my opinion. She definitely puts herself right up there with the top characters, but I don't know if that alone is enough to make her worth pulling for, or even going for a very long time, is kind of how I look at it. But that's pretty much it for this update. Here's to hear what you guys think about the changes to Lucia. I don't think it makes her busted. I just think it makes sense for what her role is single target bleed damage dealer. She should be the best. At Exclusive 3, she should be the best, in my opinion. Or at least you can look at it where she's right up there with the other ones, but you can guarantee her. You can actually pick her as a character versus Nidrold and Hazard. You got to get lucky for, or you got to plan for it in a, one of those shard events. So that's going to do it for this event here. Curious to hear you guys' thoughts below on this new patch. And with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.